Okay, I think we might get started. It's 7 o'clock. Thank you, everyone. If everyone would like to take their seats, elected members and members of our community. My name is Karen Ribbon. I'm the Mayor of the town of Gawler. I'd like to firstly acknowledge the land that we meet on tonight is the traditional lands for the Gawler people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Gawler people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Gawler people today. We have everyone here. There are no apologies. Councillors, are there any motions to grant leave of absence? Can't see anybody putting their hands up. Thank you. So there's no leave of absence currently, and there's no non-attendance. So now we move on to item 3. Firstly, I'd like to welcome everyone here in the community gallery, anyone who's watching online via YouTube. Thank you for being there and engaging with your local community and your local council. I'd like to welcome staff. I'd also like to welcome members of our local media, the Bunyip newspaper here this evening. We have quite a full agenda, public open forum, and we also have some deputations this evening. Councillors, I will allow 1 question per councillor for anyone who is speaking tonight. We have a big agenda. One of my roles is to try and get through the agenda. Thank you, Brian. Phones, they always interfere, don't they? Yeah, so 1 question per councillor for anyone tonight. So firstly, I'd like to thank everyone who comes along and speaks to council. We do have behavioural guidelines, but I'm sure that won't be an issue this evening. So firstly, we have Peter Brawman in Public Open Forum, who is the Secretary of the Gawler Eagles Football Club, but also the President of the Carbeethan Sporting Association. We have Julian Midwinter from Edith Street, and we have Mr. Tony Piccolo MP speaking on a space for people with a disability. So in that order, Peter, Julian and Tony, in that order. You have 5 minutes. We will be timing you. I'll give you a 30-second warning, if that's okay. Peter, if you'd like to, you've got the floor, Peter. Just turn it, I think, just turn it on. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, staff. Councillors, both new and old, welcome. I'm speaking on behalf of Gawler Eagles FC, which is Gawler's only soccer club. Been around since 1978 at Carbeethan Reserve on Anglevale Road. We are fully aware and supportive of the master plan proposal before council, and I do understand that there's some discussion about that later on tonight with you guys. Cut a long story short, part of that master plan also included a synthetic pitch. Now, that was to be partly funded by a very generous electoral grant via Mr. Tony Piccolo, of which we're very grateful. With the magical powers of hindsight and with extenuating circumstances to do with construction and civic works and maintenance and environmental issues, the soccer club met last night and unanimously decided that maybe the synthetic pitch is not the way to go. Number one, for us, we are aware of the immense cost involved, and also the immense cost with maintenance after a certain period of time, 6 to 8 years afterwards. It's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to resurface a synthetic pitch. We figured that that money, if it was to be generated in 8 to 10 years' time, would be better off devoted to kids, basically, rather than a piece of plastic on a soccer pitch. So I have spoken to Mr. Piccolo today, and we all concurred that that electoral grant is better repurposed for another project that we believe is of equal importance, and that is of facilities for not only boys, but particularly for girls and women at Carbeatham Reserve. So we would love to see that money be repurposed for that particular thing. At Carbeatham, there are no facilities for girls, period. I welcome each and every one of you to come down and have a look. And for those who haven't been there for quite some time, it was built in, I think, 1986. Now, it's all very fine by 1986 standards, but hey, that's nearly 40 years ago. So at Carbeatham, I'm also the president of the Carbeatham Sporting Association. We have baseball and softball as well. And apart from the soccer club having issues with retaining girls in the particular code to represent Gawler, when they reach their teenage years, they go elsewhere. Where do they go? They go to other soccer clubs around Elizabeth and Salisbury who do have the facilities for them to train and feel comfortable and feel safe. We just cannot supply that at Carbeatham. Softball is 99.9% girls. Their storeroom is an old, disused men's toilet. That's all they have. The baseball club uses the old, disused female toilet for their equipment. So when it comes to change rooms, we would love to see a new facility being built with the support of council, maybe a bit more, who knows, but we're certainly open for that discussion, where all three codes can benefit, and they can both soccer, baseball and softball can provide for their female sports people. And that's where it stands right now. Any questions?
No, we're going to have questions at the end, and we're just having one per councillor. So take a seat. You might get some questions, but stick around the front, Peter.
Okay,
because
sure.
you might have a question. So the next person is Julian Midwinter. Julian, if you'd like to come forward, thank you.
Bring it down to my level. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Welcome, councillors, old and new. I'm here, I suppose, to bring the new councillors up to speed for those of you who are unaware of the problems that have the residents of Edith Street have been facing, and the machinations that have been going on for the last 18 months to try to get something done about the traffic on Edith Street. There was a petition where the residents asked for the council to do something about the traffic that we were experiencing. There is a lot of through traffic from people cutting through to try to avoid the lights. That process sort of culminated and fizzled out towards the end of last year with a bit of a non-event. And what we are asking is for council to revisit that, to look at revisiting, surveying the data and coming up with some actual realistic, honest data on what the traffic on Edith Street is like, and to actually consult with the residents of Edith Street as to what we think can work and what you feel fits in with our wishes. And that's really the nuts and bolts, the guts of what I'm here about today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Piccolo, if you'd like to come forward. Thank you, Tony.
Good evening. Thank you, Your Worship, for the opportunity to speak to the council. Just like to also, this is my first public opportunity to congratulate the new councillors. Congratulations on your election, and hope you have a great time while you're a councillor. Tonight, I'd just like to briefly talk about a forum which was held in Gawler last night and sponsored by the Honourable Emily Burke, the Assistant Minister to the Premier and also Assistant Minister for Autism. And Emily Cummins talked about a new strategy which the state government's put in place to support autistic and autism community in South Australia. First of all, what the government's trying to do is to ensure that we are better informed what autism is and how we actually provide for people living with autism. And the reason autism has been chosen as one of the major disabilities, that is actually the one disability which affects the most people in our society. And it affects people from a very young age right throughout their life. And the state government is developing a strategy to improve what it does as a government, as an employer, but also in what it does in government in terms of services. And part of that is also to influence what happens in the private sector. It's very hard to tell the private sector what they should be doing when the government doesn't lead the way. And my submission to you, Councillor, tonight is that I think it's an opportunity for council to lead the way and to influence what the private sector does in Gawler. And by that, I'm suggesting that when you attend your briefing, I think in a few weeks' time, regarding a space in this building and how you might use that space, which is now vacant for the second time, you may want to consider that space as a social enterprise and use it as a space where people who live with disability can make use of. I think it's very important that we create spaces in this town which are inclusive. We have one business in the town already who's trying to run a business on an inclusive basis. I think it'd be great if this council could lead the way by doing something do something in this town and show what can be done and what can be achieved, and therefore show the private sector, but also inform the community about what autism is about, for example, and how we can actually change and make life better for all. So what I'm suggesting to the council as part of the process, when you revisit that decision, what happens with that space downstairs, that you at least make an opportunity to invite people to tender who actually want to provide a social enterprise and support people with disabilities in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony. Any questions for the three speakers? Councillor Kosh and Deputy Mayor Shanks. So I'll allow one question. Sorry, there you go.
Yep, this is a question for Peter from the soccer.
Peter, if you'd like to come up to the microphone. Thank you very much, Peter. You're gonna wear that out.
Peter, from my understanding, the pitch is not to standard anymore. Is that right? Okay, so what's your long-term view of improving the wearability of that space? Whoops.
Sorry, I'm trying to get Peter on.
I mean, essentially it's being overused, I suppose. So if council invests in facilities in a building and not in the pitch, what's your long-term plan for improving the wearability and the usability of the pitch?
Main issue at Carbeathan is space. And I'm aware that the footprint for the whole precinct is planned to be increased. Now, when that happens, I don't know. With regards to the senior pitch, it comes down to management and maintenance of that senior pitch. So just making sure that not everyone trains on it, that the public are kept off it as much as possible, which is pretty difficult at Carbeathan, I must admit. Quite often we see half a team rock up from who knows where, and they're just blasting balls away, particularly in the goal squares, and it's just the wear and tear. So basically, we need to maintain that to incessantly, basically, to keep that main pitch up to standard. A lot of players prefer grass than the synthetic stuff. When you slide on synthetic turf, you get burns, friction burns. And we had a match down at Modbury Vista, and one of our players received burns to such an extent he had to go to the hospital along his calf. So, yeah, to see kids playing on that sort of stuff, I really don't think that's really advisable with hindsight. Now, insofar as the infrastructure, we've got the funding for the change rooms through the electoral grant. So when it comes to council outlay, sure, if you want to chip in some more, that'd be fantastic. But as a working base, we do have that $1 million already granted that council has possession of, I believe. Suffice to say that the main pitch is in good nick right now. council staff have done a fantastic job in keeping up the water on it. It's ready to go. Our first game is on February 10. Soccer is now an 11-month a year proposition. The season ends end of September. Pre-season starts November. So it's just full on. So we're currently at capacity. Our mini roos are full, our juniors are full. We've got 3 senior teams. We've got no room for any more, to be honest, and we're knocking people back left, right and centre this time of year. So space is an issue. How council addresses that, that's certainly going to be a challenge at Carbeethan.
Okay.
The club is fully supportive of what's being attempted, and we're looking forward to things developing.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. So just on you touched on the variation, those conversations that you've just had recently on using the money that was earmarked for the synthetic pitch, but sidestepping and maybe using it for something else is what we're talking about. So what is the process around variation? And I mean, that's probably not a question to yourself, it's probably a question to our local member, but what sort of discussions have you had in that space? Like, what is the process that would have to be followed, if any?
Process. Suffice to say that I know that the grant money is sitting there. It is waiting to be tapped into. We believe that the change rooms are the ideal bang for buck, to be honest, with multiple beneficiaries, both male and female. Now, how that works, that discussion needs to be meted out.
Okay. Thank you, Peter.
Well done.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move on to deputations, and we have 2 deputations in our agenda. First deputation is Judy Gillett-Ferguson talking on the Gawler Community Gallery, and the second deputation will be Mr. Tony Piccolo on various matters. So Judy, if you'd like to come forward, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Redmond and councillors, for allowing us to present this budget submission this evening. And I believe that you've all got a copy of the submission in your agenda papers. The gallery has been able to manage its own affairs over the past 16 years, but is now facing an ageing membership, of which I'm a prime example, and volunteer pool. The council have invested heavily in the new gallery, for which not just the gallery members, but our community as a whole are extremely grateful. Its new situation puts it in a central tourism hub with the Visitor Information Centre, Pioneer Park, and the CBD generally. As many of you will be aware, a great many local councils across the state, or over 70% in fact, according to the research that I've done, already have visual arts coordinators and council-run or supported galleries. As a matter of interest, it was just such a paid coordinator employed by the Salisbury Council almost a quarter of a century ago, when myself and others formed Arts Action to try and get a gallery in Gawler. Their visual arts coordinator all those years ago gave us some invaluable advice and support. A position such as this attracts considerable tourist dollars for these councils, which helps over time to defray the expenditure on staff. We seek a funding allocation for a 0.5 visual arts coordinator who would maximise the gallery's income potential for council in ways that the current committee of volunteers cannot, through improved, wider publicity, contact with arts organisation, printing costs, both statewide and nationally. This position could possibly complement existing staff who are already curating exhibitions in this room, in the James Martin room, and in the admin centre. Such a position would improve the viability and status of the gallery and assist in making it an important economic feature of this town and this state. We understand that council's budget process is highly competitive and that the town of Gawler, compared with many other councils, has a smaller income base. But we feel our proposal would, in fact, generate income in the long term for council and eventually alleviate those staffing costs. And for this reason, we ask you to please consider our budget bid. Many thanks.
Thank you, Judy. Gillett Ferguson from the Gawler Community Gallery. Next cab off the rank is Mr. Tony Piccolo MP. Thank you, Tony.
Your Worship, thank you for the opportunity. There's just three issues I'd like to briefly raise with the council tonight. I won't be long. There's in terms of the southern Gawler area, my submission to the council tonight would be there are new elected members here tonight, new council. So there's an opportunity for this council to revisit some of the decisions made by the previous council. In other words, look at those issues with a pair of fresh new eyes. And I think it's important that wherever possible to further engage with the community. My objective would be to engage with the community so both council and the community can develop a shared vision for that area. I think that is the ideal position. We actually need to actually create a shared vision for the area. And on that basis, there will be a community workshop to be held on Sunday, the 12th of February. Elected members and staff are more than welcome to attend that workshop. That workshop will be for residents and landowners in the locality to discuss what their vision for the area is and what principles they should follow in terms of developing that area. So I would personally invite elected members and also staff to attend that and to see whether we can actually, rather than go as we are at the moment, go in two different directions, we can actually find some common ground and actually address this issue for this community. In terms of Edith Street, I know council made some decisions late last year on this matter. What I would be, my submission to the council would be that once you've actually had an opportunity to put them in place, I'm not asking to undo those decisions. What I'm asking is that once you've had an opportunity to put those in place, to actually then go and revisit that issue and put out the traffic counters, etc., and see whether the measures you put in place have actually worked, and actually whether they actually have calmed the traffic down. In other words, are there reduced speed limits, etc. And I would suggest that if that was possibly to be done after a 3-month period of the implementation of those measures, and then at that point re-engage with the community and again see if you can find some common ground. Clearly, some people are not happy in that area what council has decided. This will be an opportunity for the council to prove that what it decided can work, or alternatively, what else it can add to deliver that outcome for the local community. Again, basically to revisit the decision. On the third issue I'd like to raise is the proposed code amendment for the Vidulas nursery. I've aired some concerns, I think, previously to this council. I'm aware it is a developer privately funded code amendment, and the process is the responsibility of the people who actually undertaken that code amendment. I fully understand that. My view would also be that I don't think any government, whether it's state, federal or local, should outsource or privatise community engagement. In terms of speaking about the community, it is those authorities which should engage with people and not rely on the private sector to do that work for them. It'd be a sad day where our democracy is actually outsourced or privatised for the benefit. And so my concern about the proposal is the lack of engagement by council in reaching an initial position on this matter. And certainly that's reflected in the report before you tonight. As far as I'm aware, no engagement has taken place between the council and the community. I am aware you are not legally required to do that. It is at the responsibility of the proponent, but there is nothing, as I understand it, preventing this council in developing its own opinion on this matter, engaging with its community. Secondly, I think that from what I've read so far, there are a number of alternative locations within the town which we actually would benefit from the investment of a code amendment to create an employment zone. The feedback I've received from residents and the community are in what is already a fairly congested area, we are going to put other commercial activities. So I think there are opportunities to invest and create alternative areas in this town, which would benefit and actually uplift those areas for the benefit of all, and also create an opportunity where actually people do want it, rather than a location where most people don't want it. The report tonight indicates that the council has consulted with the Jockey Club with this matter. I have an email from the Jockey Club which arrived on my desk today, who would share a different view about the word consultation. Their view, they had a phone call to
So, Mr. Piccolo, your
Yes.
5 minutes. Sorry, I didn't give you your 30 seconds because I wasn't aware that you'd gone over time.
Okay,
But your 5 minutes is up.
I'm
Sorry.
happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions from elected members, Deputy Mayor Shanks?
Yeah, Tony, you picked on some consultation and then you cut off. Are you able to finish that sentence about the communication or consultation that did or didn't happen between the Jockey Club?
Can you turn your mic on? Thanks, Tony.
Yes,
There you go.
Your Worship. A very good question. I'm happy to answer, Councillor. The Jockey Club spoke to me today, and I'm happy to share their email with members interested. Is that they had a phone call. They stayed and had a phone call. Told them there would be a report coming out about this matter. There was a brief discussion on the phone, and if you read the report, as I read the report, it would almost imply that they're comfortable with what is progressing, where they're certainly not. They're concerned about what is proposed and what's in the agenda tonight would actually impinge heavily on their ability to actually have races on their race course, on their track. And they say that because nobody's actually gone out there, talked to them, showed them what's going to happen. So again, I don't call that consultation. I'm not sure how you define consultation. Certainly they're concerned about the proposal and they would like to know a lot more before they actually say, yes, they would support the proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Solomon, just one question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just another question for Mr. Piccolo. Just in regard to the redevelopment of the Verdulis nursery area. Obviously, you've acknowledged that council's made an initial decision and that there's the proponent, of course, goes out and consults of their own accord. In your view, or in from what you've heard from residents, what's the next step forward for council, or what is your view on how this could be rectified?
Discussions I've held with the residents out there, they're certainly trying to find a polite way of saying they're annoyed, to say the very least, that council didn't actually engage with them before they'd actually made an in-principle position. So, but certainly they would like to be engaged before council made a final position or expressed its view. I don't think that's too much to ask for. I think that, yes, the proponent has put up a report to the minister. Council has the ability to express an opinion on behalf of its community. And I would have thought that taking into account what the committee thinks and the council reaching its own position would be appropriate. One of the things which is in the report
Okay, I think you've answered the question. Thank you, Mr Piccolo. I might go to Mr Andrew Goodsell, who's the Executive Manager of Planning, just on the issue of consultation from a proponent-led code amendment. Thank you. I'll just turn yours off. There you go.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
I
If
guess
you can,
first,
if you can pick up, we can't really hear you. If you move it a bit forward so that we can hear you. Sorry, Andrew.
Right.
Thank you.
I'll project my voice.
Yeah.
Firstly, I have to say we don't outsource. It's what the Act says, and it's also a legislation that applies across the whole of South Australia. But in terms of how that legislation works, to set the record straight, it's quite clear both under Section 73 of the Act and the way the term designated entity is written, that the designated entity is the proponent. So in that situation, council is simply a referral authority initially. Council is not entitled to engage with the community because of the way the Act is written in terms of the engagement plan process. The engagement plan is prepared by the proponent, the engagement plan is delivered by the proponent, and then they come back to council ultimately as we negotiate the land management agreement, and that deals with issues of drainage, parking, and all associated issues to do with development of the land. The benefit in this process is the land management agreement is not finalised until the community engagement process is completed, and then council makes a decision on whether it agrees with the LMA. By doing that, council has basically fairly significant control over this amendment and the development on the ground. So it's not too difficult in my mind to see how the Act works, and we comply with exactly what the Minister requested us to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Davies, you've got one question.
Yeah, so the main problem here is that the planning system, the new planning system it cuts out the community. Is there, from a state government perspective, is that something that you're going to bring to the Parliament, is changes to this planning system? Because it's what's cutting the community out of the process.
Firstly, the new planning system was designed to do two things. One was to create certainty at the end process, and also involve councils and the community in the development of policy. If you seek to interpret the law as it is in the way which has just been indicated, it actually means the community is cut out from the whole process. And
That's not quite true, is it?
sorry,
That's not quite true, because the proponent has a community engagement plan that will go out and have meaningful, and it says in our papers, meaningful community engagement with all stakeholders, everybody. So I don't think that's quite true, is it?
I think it is, and I'll explain why, Your Worship. I met with the proponents and they were courteous enough to meet with me and discuss their engagement process, etc. And I made some suggestions how they could engage, etc. I also made it very clear that in supporting them or advising them how to engage, was not to immediately interpret that I actually support the proposal. I did ask the one question about engagement. I said, if the community says they do not want this, is that what you're going to tell the council? And the answer was no. So you actually have effectively cut the community out of the whole process. They're the ones who will live with this for the next 25, 30, 40, 50 years, yet they have no say.
Well, they will have a say as part of the community engagement
However,
process.
they will say through a prism which serves the purpose.
Well, that's your view,
Yeah.
but
That's my view, and you're absolutely right.
the proponents have said that they will do meaningful, and I expect them to do meaningful engagement. So let's see where it goes, I guess.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Piccolo. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much. Right. Thank you, everyone, for the deputations and the questions. Declarations of interest, councillors. We have a couple of people with their hands up. I'll start with Councillor Koch and then go to Councillor White.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I wish to declare a general conflict for items 10.2 and 10.3. Both those items could potentially go to the CAP, and I'm a member of CAP. So I will be leaving the meeting on both of those both of those items.
Thank you. Thank you, councillor Kosh. Councillor White.
Thanks, Mayor Redmond. I'll be declaring two conflicts of interest tonight. Firstly, a material conflict of interest in item 10.1.
Yeah.
Regarding the Gawler Show Society sponsorship update.
Yes.
And also a general conflict in item 10.4, the 2022-2023 community grants. And I will be dealing with those accordingly when we get to those items.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any other conflict of interest that people wish to declare? Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Mayor. I've handed my form over there, so I'm just gonna have to find the number, but I'll declare a conflict of interest in regard to the Carbeethan Reserve item, just because a close family member of mine is a member of the Gawler Eagles Soccer Club. So I'll declare a general conflict of interest, and I'll
Yeah.
deal with that by voting in the best interest of the community and maintaining confidentiality.
So we'll revisit that when we come to the item.
Yeah.
And if you can fill out your form,
Aye.
and if that goes for everybody that's declared a conflict. Thank you very much, Councillor Solomon. Okay, any other declarations of conflict? No. Thank you, everyone. There's no adjourned items, there's no petitions, confirmation of minutes, ordinary council meeting, 27th of December. There wasn't a meeting on, when was it? Wasn't the 27th. Really nice to have this, when was it? Let me just check. I'll check and get the right. It was the 13th of December, not the 27th. If that can be changed, thanks, Anna. Thank you very much. Okay. Do we have a mover for the minutes? Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Do I have a seconder for the minutes? Thank you, Councillor Davies. If there's no further discussion, I'll put that motion that the minutes be confirmed. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Business arising from minutes. There be none. I'm moving on to 10.1. I'm on page 6 of 98 of the agenda. Now, Councillor White.
Thanks, Mayor. So yes, I'll be declaring a material conflict of interest in this item as I provide paid services to the Gawler Show Society. And I'll deal with this conflict by leaving the room for the duration of the item.
Thank you very much. We'll allow Councillor White to leave the room before we start the matter. We'll allow Councillor White to leave the room before I proceed. Thank you. Councillor Hennessy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the motion, but before that, I seek permission to make a statement to my colleagues.
Okay. Councillor Hennessy has sought leave. I need 2/3. If people could show in the usual way. Yes, you have 2/3. You have leave.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to, I've taken advice. And I've been advised that I don't have a conflict of interest in this matter, but in the purposes of full transparency, I want to state that I have been a member of the Gawler Show Society for nearly 40 years, and I occasionally volunteer for them. But having said that, I'd like to move the motion. I'm very pleased to see that this has come to council. However, I do want to add an additional clause. I want to strengthen the conditions of sponsorship. The way that the town of Gawler and thereby the residents of the town are acknowledged.
Suggesting an extra point?
An extra point, yes. Would you like me to read it?
Yes,
I have it in writing, if the minute taker would prefer it that way. It's
you got it in writing? That'd be fabulous.
Sure, thank
That'd
you.
be-
Just
Thank
to
you,
read,
Karen.
just to read it out. Clause 4, the sponsorship provided by the town of Gawler to the Gawler Show Society is to be acknowledged and included in all advertising, press releases and promotional literature produced by the Gawler Show Society. The town of Gawler's logo will be supplied that it can be included in such acknowledgements.
So it's just going over to the minute taker now. If we allow the minute taker to type that up, are you happy to second that, Councillor Hughes? While you've read that out, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, that clause actually comes from a grant opportunity that the Heritage Committee is looking at, and it is from a foundation, an independent foundation, and they have a very similar clause, which is conditional to gaining money from that group. I think on behalf of the residents of the town, we need to be a little bit more proactive in encouraging people who receive money from council and thereby from ratepayers to duly acknowledge that. Some people do, and they do a great job of it, but it's not consistent. So I'm just firming up the situation and encouraging it both in this situation, which is the first time Gawler Show Society is first off the ranks, but I will have a similar thing when we come to the grants later in the meeting. So it's just starting to introduce it as a common clause. Councillor Hughes, do you wish to speak at all?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I fully support this motion. I'd like to also commend the committee that runs the show. There's been a lot of work to get their finances and things in order. There's been some setbacks, but there's been quite substantial work to get their not-for-profit status back and to actually get back fully and operating very well. They do have an AGM in February where they will be getting a new committee together. It is our biggest event in the town, and I think this is Gawler Council's one of the biggest sponsorships as well, but it is the biggest event in Gawler. It's very successful, but it does rely upon volunteers and the committee members that do the work behind the scenes. And there's also a lot of work that's done by council staff. I did talk to Steve, the treasurer, yesterday, and he was very thankful for the assistance he's been receiving from council staff, especially in the finance area. And the grounds as well, which I that working together is just very important, and that assistance I think is especially in regards to governance and getting the finances and making the show as successful as possible is really important. But yeah, I do agree about the sponsorship, and yeah, there have been events in Gawler that the council's fully sponsored, and we don't get as many mentions, or I don't think people realise that it's fully funded by council. So I think this is good. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to any other councillor, Steve or Claire, do you wish to say anything, or are you happy to sit at the back of the bus there? It's really up to you. If you could turn that mic on, thanks, Claire. There you go.
Thank you for having us. And as David said, we've had a lot of support from council and council staff getting back on track. And we also have Lynn, that some of you have met, and other committee members here supporting us as we move into what should be a really good 2023 year. I look forward to our AGM this year because I think that it'll be how we should be, back on track and having things, I guess, better organised. Last year, I'll write in my report how things were, and I do want to make an apology to the members that were there. So I appreciate where we've come from and where we're going to get to for 2023.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, both Steve and Claire. Councillor Davies, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I'm happy to support the motion. I think I went along to the Gawler Show, and it's great to see them on track while having significantly cut their spending and still managing to do a lot of what they were doing with the spending before, and bring their finances into a good position and everything. So yeah, happy to support this.
Are there any speakers against the motion? You've got a question, Councillor Kosh.
Yes, ma'am. I just want to clarify what the $3,600 extra is covering, because on page 9 of 98 of 98 of our agenda item, it talks about seeking extra assistance, including ad hoc cleaning, relocation of equipment and storage, rubbish pickup and removal throughout the precinct, set up and pack down, etc. So, and when I go to the actual funding agreement, part 3.1.12 actually looks like it doesn't quite match with what we're asking here, that we're going to be doing as the setup and the pack up, because in that part, it actually talks about the society actually looking after the setup and the pack up. And now so it's not actually aligning with the agreement, I don't think.
Natasha, is Natasha here? Natasha, if you'd like to come forward and just explain what that extra money is there for, please. Thank you.
Through the chair, just to clarify, we as council provide our facilities. So when in the past, when we referred and is included in the sponsorship agreement, it refers to council facilities set up and pack up. Not necessarily direct support for the Gawler Show Society. So the Gawler Show Society have been responsible for obviously setting up the infrastructure for the Gawler Show. So this would be providing them some extra ad hoc assistance in that regard. We also, the Gawler Show Society have been responsible for rubbish collection and the putting back at the precinct after the Gawler Show. So this money allows us to bring in some resources to support them to do that. Princess Park, throughout the precinct, rubbish collection and removal. Yeah, I think that's about
So
we haven't done that.
It's the cleaning up after the show.
Yes.
And just assisting them rather than doing it the day after the show and making a phone call to the mayor.
Yes.
It's a bit more methodical.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And to put it into perspective, in the past, there's been a large army of volunteers, and obviously the nature of volunteering at the moment, it is difficult to get that. So providing that extra support will also assist not only council, but the Gawler Show Society.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank you very much. Are you happy with that? Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, being one of the 20,000 attendants on Saturday, it was great to see the show operating as it was pre-COVID. I know, like a lot of organisations, businesses, etc., took a hit in navigating through that period, but to see it back to pre-COVID times was fantastic. And offering the support from a council level, I think, is one of those services is tasked on council to be doing. So providing that support is a good thing all round. I mean, 20,000 on the Saturday, 17,000 on the Sunday, 37,000 people came through our town for this one event alone. Now, just to put that in perspective, our population here, I think, is around 25,000 live in the town of Gawler. So that's a lot of people coming through, a lot of activation in our town for a weekend event. So, I think it would be silly not to keep that ball rolling. And also picking up on Councillor Hennessy's point, absolutely in full support of that. There's also the onus on us as council as well to make it clear what we're supporting and how we're supporting consistently too. And I think that's something we can work on as council when we're marketing and getting our messages out to the broader community. But this also taps into that. So yeah, look, I'm in full support of this, and look forward to attending with my 6-year-old, if she'll be at that time, and my 1.5-year-old.
Thank you. If there's nobody who's speaking against, Councillor Hennessy, are you happy for me to put the motion? I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to 10.2. Yep. Do you want to declare your conflict while we're waiting for Councillor White to?
Yep, Mayor, I wish to declare a general conflict for this item. I'm a member of the Council's CAP, and this item may be an agenda item at a future meeting. So I'll be dealing with this by leaving the meeting at this point.
Okay, thank you. So councillors, we have a officer's recommendation. It's quite a detailed report. How do you wish to proceed? Future Urban, who wishes to speak from Future Urban? If you could introduce yourself, please. Because I don't know your names. I only know one name, and that's Ben Fitzsimons.
Thank you, Your Worship, council members, Michael Osborne from Future Urban. I have with me Chris Vanassis from Future Urban, and the proponent, Ben Fitzsimmons and Nick Emmett. I do have a presentation which is coming up.
How long is it? How long is it? How many slides?
I can make it quick, but it's about
Excellent.
15 slides.
Excellent. I wasn't aware that you were going to have slides.
Right.
That's okay. How many slides are there? Can you
About
tell me?
15 or so.
15, 30
Yeah.
seconds a slide then. Okay.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just,
Or even 15 would be even better. Okay. Off you go.
sorry, it just needs to come up again. It's, there we go. Whilst that's, coming up, this is, the second presentation that we've made to the council. So, some of the content in here is for the benefit of the new councillors, and we've had obviously some discussion through deputations tonight that put some question about the process. So we're going to just build a little bit of commentary in relation to that. This is still not.
Okay. Have we got a problem with the presentation? Clearly we have.
It's just not letting me click onto it.
We've gone to questions.
It's the back.
That's great.
Here we go.
You-
We've got it now.
Oh,
I'll
good.
go back
That's
to-
great.
Okay.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yeah. If you can run through this
Right,
and
so
key
I'll go
points,
through it
please.
quickly, I promise you, Worship. So in terms of the presentation, in essence, we'll just go through about what a code amendment is and the process. We'll talk about the outcomes of the code amendment, and then I'll focus in particular about the engagement process, which I'm sure is of interest to you. Again, as was mentioned earlier on tonight, it is a process that's legislated under Section 73 of the Act. So it is a relatively new process. It's only 5 years old, but it's only really been in effect for the last couple of years. So it is a process that a lot of stakeholders are getting used to. It's important to note that it is a policy amendment. It's not a development application. So we are looking at changing the policy, the zoning policy that applies to the land. Development applications will follow, and it's likely the development application on this site will be subject to public notification and therefore further debate with the community. So that's important to note. This is a proponent-led process, and that is a process that is provided for under the Act. Council has no responsibility in terms of managing the process, whether that's creating the policy or engagement. That's 100% with the proponent. So the staff agenda report tonight is completely correct in relation to that. The process is a long one. Again, it's been about 9 months since we've been at first briefed the council, but it goes through a process of preliminary investigation, an initiation which is signed by the minister in terms of agreeing to start a process, more detailed investigations, and as part of that, there's been a good 6 months of discussion with council staff on a variety of issues. We're now at the point of I won't quite get that far, but we are now at a point of engagement, and that engagement process I'll talk about as we go forward. But in essence, after the engagement, we do need to do an evaluation of that engagement process. We do summary reports, which are made available. And then ultimately, we move towards decision, which is a decision of the minister. The purpose of that slide is showing that the key community input is basically now as we enter the engagement process. That being said, we did write to adjacent landowners when we first spoke with council 9 months ago, to make them aware that we're in the pre-initiation stage, and to be aware that something is coming. And we've had ongoing dialogue with stakeholders in that process. Timelines in relation to this process, again, it started midway through last year. The ambition is to close it by the mid of this year, so it's around a 12-month process. Whilst we've got tight timeframes, we strategically and intentionally and respectfully commenced community engagement 30th of January, noting that this is the first available meeting for the council, and also to enable adjacent landowners and the like to be back from their basically back from their Christmas holidays. So we've started it. We'll start it now in January. In terms of the site, again, your agenda report makes clear where this site is, and it is a site that's relatively rare in the council perspective, in terms of being generally underutilised, but also with access to major arterial road. As the council members are aware, it's been used for the Vidoulis Garden Centre for at least 50 years. Reasons to rezone this land is that Vidoulis is a long-standing non-residential use. So despite the land being in a neighbourhood zone, which is effectively a residential zone, it hasn't been put for that purpose for that period of time. The employment lands is very thin within the council area, and it's constrained. A lot of the sites are historic. A lot of the sites that are zoned for employment don't have main road frontage. This is part of the advantage of this particular site. Council members will be well aware of the growth that is going on within and adjacent to Gawler, and with housing comes people, and comes the demand for land and for jobs. For jobs and for land. Strategically, council's community plan does again support the principles of ensuring an adequate supply of affordable commercial land. So this responds to council's own strategy. Importantly, being able to retain employment opportunities within the council, rather than requiring your residents to move elsewhere, is another advantage. And from an amenity point of view and a functioning point of view, the main road frontage is important. We can, through this process, ensure that there's no access to Sheriff Street, unlike the current garden centre. We can make sure that Main North Road is the main intersection, and we'll be providing traffic lights to support that operation. So key outcomes, as I mentioned, from neighbourhood zone to an employment zone, that an employment zone enables a range of commercial type uses. The building height policy put forward as part of the engagement material is a building height of 13 metres. I'll show a concept plan in a moment that shows how we're dealing with interface. But concurrent with the code amendment is a land management agreement, which we have in a draft form, that deals with the technical issues that have been dealt with and discussed with council staff over the last 6 months. There's a clear opportunity for the proponent to tap into and to contribute to the broader flood management strategy that relates to the area. We can strengthen commitments in relation to on-site detention of stormwater, which is a code requirement in any event. We can guarantee the commitment of signalised intersection. We've included commitments in relation to tree retention, and also restrictions above and beyond the code in terms of land use. Concept plan, this is a planning document, but again, there's no obligation for the proponent to prepare this plan, but on the basis of our understanding of local issues, this is a policy document that we intend to put into the code amendment, and it's going to be subject to notification. But in very broad terms, without going to the specifics, given the timeframe we've got, We are trying to ensure that access is restricted to Main North Road only. So there's designated lines on that plan that prevent access. We're providing buffers and separation distances to the adjoining residential properties to the south and to the east, and again also dealing with acoustic attenuation based on some advices that we've received through the investigations. So that's some specific policies that I think will be of interest through the engagement process. That's just some analysis that we've done to sort of think about what buildings might look like from adjoining property owners. So again, that's part of the notified documents that will be through the engagement. So I'm approaching the end of the presentation. In terms of the engagement, we've in theory commenced. This is part of the engagement. As Mr. Piccolo mentioned, we have met with him previously. We've already speaking with some of the adjoining owners. They will be receiving formal letters, if not today, tomorrow. They've certainly in the Australia Post system, but we've got a 6-week process of formal engagement. And basically, in accordance with your agenda report, there's some of the actions that we've got. I think it's important to note that one of the preconditions of the minister supporting the initial engagement was that we had to provide a copy of our code amendment and engagement strategy to the State Planning Commission. So they're an independent body. They reviewed our package and just before Christmas endorsed it for use. So that independence has been built in. It's also very important to note that the stakeholder engagement charter is the guiding document in terms of how we engage or how any proponent engages. And we're obliged to adhere to that. And certainly in our experience that when we come to the end of that process, it's more than likely there'll be a peer review of that process undertaken by the department. So there is again some checks and balances to ensure that the stakeholders are informed, they are heard, and their comments are reported on appropriately. And of course, we are entering this in a very open way. We want to understand the issues, and if we can make adjustments to the code amendment, we will through that process. In essence, as I mentioned before, we're trying to conclude this by the end of the year. Ultimately, another key point for the council will be finalising the land management agreement. So again, in good faith, we've been working with the council staff to work through some of the technical requirements there. And part of that probably touches on the point in relation to the racing club, the Gawler Racing Club, the comment before. Part of the overall, I guess, vision, not just for this code amendment, but more broadly, is the stormwater management function for the racecourse. Part of our proposal is to help fund some of the upgrades that relate to that. And then also with our intersection upgrade, with the traffic intersection, there's a shared path across the other side of Main North Road that might need to be slightly shifted. That is all part of again, a broader process as well in terms of widening of Main North Road that DIT will be doing in due course in any event. So we are certainly going to be talking more with the racing club. That's part of this ongoing process, and they've certainly received letters from us already. So that dialogue will continue.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Very good presentation and very succinct. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. Just a question on the presentation with the height diagrams. Will that actually be sent out with the package and the letter to the neighbouring landowners?
Yes, it is. And I actually have left Chris a copy of what is actually being distributed and will be at the front counter for the council.
Okay.
So there is
That's okay. We don't need to have it, but we can get that later.
Yeah, the
We will get
full
that later.
the full document certainly has a lot of detail, and then the summary document does as well.
Thank you for that clarification. We've got multiple questions. We'll have one question each, not multiple per councillor. So I'll go to councillor Davies first.
So in a deputation earlier, the local member sort of raised concerns about whether it's meaningful for you to be the one to do an engagement, because, you know, everyone could say, I don't like it, and it wouldn't change your business case for why you would want to go ahead with it, I guess. So like, do you have a response? Like, what is the meaning of the engagement?
Well, the meaning of engagement has various themes in terms of the informing and consulting and engaging at all levels of the spectrum. And there's elements that are open for negotiation and discussion. And trying to make it clear in our engagement material about things that we can change and what we can't change. So there's a fundamental yes or no, do you support it or not? But in terms of some of the detail, there's some things that we can look at. So for instance, if people talk about, you know, the landscaping or the, you know, the buffer or things like that, or height, there's discussions that can be had about that. We can't change wording of the zone, the employment zone, because that's state policy. So that's where there's some nuances there. But ultimately, we have trained professionals in that space, and they need to enter this into good faith. As I said, it has to be robust, and we do need to look at what the impact is in terms of the developer and the ultimate outcome. That's not the professional view. That's ultimately what the proponent needs to look at. But the professional reports will be done, and that's what gets I guess, audited through the independent peer review.
So I'll go to another question. I think councillor Solomon, you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Osmond. I'm just wondering about you mentioned in there the land management agreement going above and beyond the Act. I believe you may have been referring to restrictions on the use of the further development of that land, and it can only be used as a bulky goods site. Can you give us a bit of detail on how far the scope of that agreement and how far reaching it is? Does it apply to landowners in the future, or what are the implications of that?
So Mr. Osborne, you're doing a rezoning process to rezone the land from residential to employment lands. Yep. Okay, thank you. Just if you want to respond.
Yes, so that's the rezoning process, but the land management agreement will apply to all land management agreements get registered on the title. So whether the current proponent you know, sells the land, the subsequent owner would need to oblige. So that's the technical how that will work. But in essence, as I said, we can't change state policy in terms of the land uses anticipated in that zone. So the only mechanism we've got is the land management agreement to capture these matters that we've had discussions with council with already.
So the land management agreement sits over the land and it stays there until council can revoke it at a future time when it's not necessary anymore. But often they stay for many years because they can be, if they're well written, they can be quite useful. Deputy Mayor.
At what point of the process did the community become aware of what business, I guess, slash businesses are going to go there?
That will be through the development application process. When tenants are determined and decided. So at the moment, this is a policy document, a rezoning document. And then once if that gets through its next phase, gets endorsed, then the proponents have the ability to make commercial decisions in relation to that.
So that's a separate process.
Yeah, because at the moment, it's hypothetical.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes, did you want to move the motion or not? No. You don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah, I will move the motion. This is the next, I suppose this is the process for the next steps. So from this motion, this continues the process. So the community engagement with the letters already been in the post, but this allows that feedback to eventually come back to council and the LMA. And when we've got the LMA as a council, we will go through that. We'll also go through the community consultation to try and make sure that the consultation can address as many factors as possible. But this is just part of this process tonight. So I'm happy to continue the process and see what the community consultation gives us and the next steps is through the PowerPoint. So yeah, happy to move the motion.
Are you happy to second Councillor Vallelonga? Do you wish to speak at all? No, that's okay. So seconded by Councillor Vallelonga. Discussion. I saw Councillor Solomon first and then Councillor Hennessy.
Just to go for what's appropriate here, may I ask 2 questions of staff first and then proceed to give comment?
Yes, are you speaking for or against?
I'm speaking against.
Against. So the questions to start?
So the first question, it speaks to the motion, is about why is it necessary to pass this motion tonight? Is there anything that would encumber the process if we weren't to pass the motion?
Mr. Goodsell, if you can respond to that question, please.
Through the chair. I think it's a protocol here effectively that there is a process of engagement that is to occur. It's a courtesy that the proponent has provided to council. It would be remiss of them not to do what they've presented tonight. As you can see through the recommendation, it's largely about noting and recognising and that the proponent is complying with the Act. So in theory, you could, if you wish, have a view saying we don't agree with this process effectively by abstaining or not voting or voting against. But I think it would be counterproductive, and I think not what was intended by the Act, in that the proponent will need to come back to council anyway in terms of the LMA process and in terms of ultimately the engagement that's occurred. So we can't hear the engagement if we don't sort of support that process.
So there'd be no engagement?
Well, there could be, but I think it shows a lack of faith in terms of ongoing negotiations on an LMA process.
Yeah, yeah. So you'd actually lose the capacity to engage with the LMA?
It undermines our relationship with the proponent in good faith, listen to what the proponent says and what the community says in terms of a formal engagement process as intended by the Act.
Okay. I think that addresses that question.
I believe it does. Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Next question is that if council had chosen not to indicate its initial support for the proposal, would this have prevented the application from progressing at all?
I didn't even understand what that, you're actually speaking to me, Councillor Solomon, not to the staff. So if you can address the question to me.
No worries,
thank you.
So in regards to the application, I'll give a bit of preliminary information for your reference. Obviously, council has chosen to give in principle support to the application.
Yep.
As was part
so
of
what's
the
your question?
Council, and that was then from that support, is it possible for this application to progress if that support had not been given at that stage? or if we indicated other than supporting it.
Mr. Goodsell.
The application, sorry, I couldn't yell. The application would have proceeded regardless.
Yeah.
But given that the minister had written that the LMA is to be prepared to council satisfaction, it would have been somewhat odd for us not to, as a referral agency, effectively say we note the process and that is a ministerial supported amendment.
Okay, thank you. Do you wish to speak to the motion? I suggest you do now.
Is now that if I was to move an amendment, is now the appropriate time to move that?
What's the amendment?
To keep in clause 1 to acknowledge, to note the report, and to strike out clauses 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
So that
Leaving
actually
1
isn't
and
an
8.
It's
It's not an amendment?
It's
Okay.
an alternative motion.
It's an alternative motion. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the appropriate?
We've already had a motion moved and seconded,
Okay.
and we're debating this
All right,
motion.
I'll
So
speak
I'm
to
not
this motion.
accepting that amendment because it's not an amendment.
No worries. Yeah,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Mayor.
Do you wish to speak?
I'll speak to the motion 2 minutes. Fine, is it? Okay,
Oh.
thank you. Oh, yeah. Yes, no worries. Thank you, Mayor. So there's a couple of concerns that I wanted to speak to tonight, just because this was taken to the IAS committee with a proposal which was noting of reports and the delegation of power to the CEO to work collaboratively with the proponent. There's been an assertion that under the Act that, or the code, that council is not supposed to or not allowed to consult on this. I think that's a dangerous sort of way to progress with this, because under the Act, it clearly stipulates that the proponent must go out and consult, and it sends in there that the proponent must consult with council. I think if we were to take the community side out of that, the idea that the council is representative of the community and has some responsibility to engage with the community before coming to a decision, which was done in the IAS committee, it essentially gives the appearance that all that's required in the Act is that the proponent comes to council and is able to use council resources or council staff to, gather more information. And I think we need to really acknowledge what our role is as a council as well, because we're here as decision makers. When that report was brought to the IAS committee, it didn't clearly state that the council, it didn't clearly acknowledge that what council was doing by passing that motion was to, in principle, support the application. And that's what's been done. So I think in order to really speak to this properly, the council does need to go out and do some kind of a consultation, and to say that we have no responsibility to consult is, I think, abrogating some responsibility that we actually do have to our community as elected members and as a council. That decision to support the application was not made by council, it was noted by council. And I think it's very clear that in any future decision, that I think it's clear that the proponent has done fantastic work on this, and I think that everything that they have done is sound, but to say that we have no responsibility in this as well is just not true, and it would indicate that council is somehow superfluous to this process. I think I'll leave it at that, but I would encourage members to vote against this item, because I think it recognises some things which are not in fact true. And obviously we've heard tonight that the Gawler Jockey Club, Mr. Piccolo alleged that they had not been consulted. So I think to acknowledge those kind of statements is the wrong thing to do.
Okay. Speakers for? Speakers for the motion, Councillor Hennessy.
I am going to, with great hesitation, I will vote for this. However, I want to express my, similar to Councillor Solomon, my disappointment with the way that this process has been undertaken. We have in fact engaged with the community. I am very aware of the IAP spectrum of public participation. The very first one is informed.
when the focus group came to speak to council 9 months ago, plus sent out the pre-initiation letter, they were informing the community. The community, but they were doing it in a select manner. There was only a select number of people who got the letter. There's only a select number of people who read council minutes. But our community is quite well networked, as we all know, and that information raced around the town. It is a part of Gawler that is very important. It is an entranceway and exit way to our community. Most people in this town will have an opinion about that site. So we're in a no-win situation because, of course, council is going to be accused of not consulting. Because we had, in a way, informed, because this is a public forum and we publish material online to the public. So we're caught. We're not doing a formal communication, a consultation, because that's with the other group. But we have told some in the community, but we have not explained it clearly. I'm hoping that perhaps when we talk about the feedback to the Act, we can include this type of thing, but because yet again, the community misses out, the community becomes frustrated and the community criticises council. It is not a very good system. It's similar to the, going next door and finding, or walking around the neighbourhood and finding there's a plasticised sheet on a property. It is a very poor way of engaging with community. What can you expect but the community to get angry? So that's my bit.
Any other discussion, Councillor Davies?
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat to Councillor Hennessy of, I might support this motion because the proponents have done everything that they're supposed to do. And this is noting the process, but I don't like the process. So, it's, but I think a lot of that is an issue that the state government needs to solve by fixing its process. And we're stuck in the middle here, not because, there are things that the council, I think, could improve on in terms of reaching out to the community in a way that makes them less frustrated, but we are working from unfortunate circumstances that are not our own. So yeah, just I guess noting my frustration with the process, but I don't necessarily see a problem with the motion as it is up there.
Thank you. Any other discussion, Councillor Lorna?
Yeah, I agree with everyone else that's spoken tonight so far. Truly feel like we've been railroaded into a decision or used as a scapegoat, so to speak. This is happening regardless whether we agree to it or not, sort of thing. So correct me if I'm wrong, fellas, but that's what's happening, isn't it? So I don't feel that I've really got much choice here but to accept what's happening, because if I go against it, it's not going to change anything. So that's what I want to say.
Thank you, Councillor Lorna. Councillor White.
Thanks, Mayor Redmond. Yes, I respect everyone's point of views tonight. I think everyone has made valid points, and I thank you all for presenting tonight. For me personally, I was elected to this position to represent the community, and I feel that the community hasn't been represented and brought along this journey to the best that council can deliver. I understand that there is a state government process and policy that is in play here, but as Councillor Lorna has just referred to, whatever we decide isn't really going to change the outcome at the end of the day. So for the reason that I'm here to best represent Gawler, and we've had members of the public speak against what is happening. We've had our local MP come here tonight and speak against what has happened to not only residents, but also allegedly to a local sporting club. I'm going to be voting against this motion for the very fact that I'm here for the community, and I don't believe that this process that has been undertaken best includes the community.
So I think we're saying the same thing over again. I'm actually going to ask Councillor Hughes to wrap up the debate. Thank you, Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I agree with the comments being, I think Councillor Lorna sort of probably summarised it the best. But yeah, we will have a say as council with the LMA process, and the LMA is a very powerful document that will stipulate what will happen on the property in the future, and the consultation will actually help drive that. And I'm sure that at any stage, any councillor in this room can go out and letterbox or do more communication with any member of the public, which is their role, right and role to do as well. So I've spoken to some of the adjoining residents, and I think other councillors have as well. So, but yeah, as far as communication from council, I think that's on everyone's radar to try and improve that as part of our term on council, and it's something we're working towards. But at this stage, I'm supporting this motion.
So the debate is now closed. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? Can people please put up who voted for the motion, please, again, for the benefit of me? The motion is carried. Thank you. Councillor Ballaloonga has called a division. All those in favour, please stand. Thank you. All those in favour are Councillor Davies, Councillor Ballaloonga, Councillor Hughes, Councillor Hennessy, Councillor Sambor. All those against are stay standing. All those against are Councillor Lorna, Councillor White, Councillor Shanks and Councillor Solomon. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Councillor Kosh, you're declaring a conflict for the Paxton Street, is that correct?
Yes, now I'll be declaring a general conflict. I'm a member of CAP, and this item may be eventually an application to CAP, which I'll need to deliberate on. So I'll remove myself from meeting.
Okay, thank you. We'll allow Councillor Kosh to leave. We have Councillor Deputy Mayor, you've got your hand up.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to move a version of this if I could.
Can I have the extra bit that you were thinking about?
Yeah, I've actually emailed it to Chris, and I've just.
I need to see it.
Yeah, no, it was only just recently, Mayor. It was just.
I need to see it.
Oh, you haven't got your emails? Sorry, Mayor, I'll email it straight to you as well. My apologies, I should have CC'd you in 15 minutes ago when I sent it through. This is in addition to option 4, so it would come in after option.
I haven't got it yet. I haven't got it. Let me just get out of the Wi-Fi because the Wi-Fi doesn't work. Doesn't seem to work. Here we go.
Is there a better email I can send it?
Got it. Where is it? And in addition, should this option not result in a viable option for the Car Club, Council make a financial allocation for the Car Club of up to 70,000. In the 2023-24 annual budget for any land rectification needed due to the fill on the council-owned site at Little Paxton Street that may be needed if the club chooses to build their 27 metre by 12 metre shed on this land. So you're asking council to add 70,000 for the Car Club.
For budget deliberations, yes, Mayor, for the 2023-2024.
All right, if you're moving that way.
Yep. So that'll be option 4. So SES Williston site Is there an extra email? I'll just hand this to you.
It would have been preferable if you'd actually sent it a bit earlier. And instead of right now. So I'm going to read that out again for people. And in addition, should this option not result in a viable option for the car club, council make a financial allocation to the car club of up to $70,000 in the 2023-24 annual budget for any land rectification needed due to the fill on the council-owned site at Little Paxton Street that may be needed if the club chooses. So I'm just going to go to, because this is really left field. I was not aware that this was coming. CEO. This is really, well, I feel a bit uncomfortable adding 70,000. I'd actually rather it be a motion on notice that people could actually consider properly and staff could consider that.
If I could, I'll have a couple of points of clarification. If a motion seeks to otherwise provide funding to a third party, then that has a material effect on the nature of that expenditure, whether it's operating or capital. So I think if the intention is that council consider in the context of the budget, sorry for this feedback, context of the budget, the potential allocation of $70,000 to a community building at Paxton Street, that might be more preferable alternative wording, because firstly, we're not giving money to the car club, which is material in terms of the nature of expenditure, and we're further referencing its allocation and consideration in the context of the 23-24 budget.
So would it be better for this motion, this 0.5, to be a motion on notice for council staff to consider it properly? Because I'm happy to accept it as a motion on notice at a future meeting, but I'm actually feeling really uncomfortable adding without any it's policy on the run, and I'm feeling really uncomfortable about it. And Sharon's nodding, so I'm actually not going to accept that 0.5. I'm sorry, Councillor Shanks, but you are able to put it up as a motion on notice. Okay, so you wish to defer the matter? So you're wishing to defer the matter to a future council meeting? Yep. Okay, that might be preferable. And then it could be a motion on notice and you could add it in as part of that council agenda. I'd feel much more comfortable with that. So you're happy to defer? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, firstly, apologies, Mayor, the intention wasn't to catch you off guard. Obviously, I was on the phone to you earlier today and I was still trying to massage through an amendment, sorry, a version of this. Look, the officer's recommendations are fine to a degree, but I see another option that is not yet tabled. And I want the opportunity to be able to speak to that. And it's seeming like I'm causing some discomfort, which is distracting from the merit of the intent. So I think it would be justified to move this motion a month, albeit I'm sure the car club's not going to be too happy with us losing another month. But I can see the way the conversation may or may not go. And I think it would be prudent to give us another month, and then I can, yes, definitely provide members with a preamble and give some method into my madness, I guess, as well as the debate that would come with any motion that an elected member would move as well. So if I can get the support for the deferral, it will allow that comfort for all in the room, not just myself and whoever was in support.
I've got a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Davies. So we've got a seconder. I'm actually going to put that motion that we defer the matter and and then we can get proper staff feedback on the extra element of this proposal. So I'm going to put that motion. We have a mover and we have a seconder that the matter be deferred to the February council meeting. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you everyone for your patience. We're moving on to 10.4 community grants. Now, Councillor White, do you wish to declare your conflict? I believe you announced something earlier.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Redmond. Yeah, I'm going to declare a general conflict of interest because I'm the executive committee of the Barossa Light and Gawler Umpires Association. And last year in 2022, the association received funding through the community grants program. I am going to deal with this general conflict by leaving the room. However, just as I'm on the executive committee and I'm unsure if it will apply this year, I just think it would be better if I left the room for this discussion.
Thank you very much, Councillor White. We'll allow Councillor White and Councillor Koch has returned, and Councillor White will now leave. We'll allow him to leave the room before we this recommendation asks that we appoint a selection panel. I'm happy to go on it. Councillor Davies. Councillor Koch. We can have more. Doesn't have to be just 3, but that's fine if there's 3. All good? Okay. We have an officer's recommendation. Are you happy to move that way, Councillor Hughes? Do you wish to speak at all? No. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ballalonga. We have a seconder. I'll ask the minute taker to Councillor Koch. Yep. And so it was moved by Councillor Hughes and seconded by Councillor Ballalonga. Thank you. Any discussion? We've got, I think I saw Councillor Shanks and then Councillor Hennessy. Deputy Mayor Shanks, I beg your pardon.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, the community grants program is one of those good news stories that I think we do quite well in for the community. I did put my hand up to go on the selection panel, I think 1 year, and I was devastated that it clashed with the work thing and I wasn't able to attend. And ever since then, I've sort of, I hate taking up a spot for that to unfortunately happen again. But what it does and like the engagement that it actually provides is, I think, and the outcomes, I mean, the list of outcomes that we have in the report is a fantastic thing. I do note that we're down to $15,000, I think this round is, that was budgeted last year. You know, it would be cool to see a little bit more in that, but I'm sure that conversation will come out in the budget deliberations to come. So yeah, look, this one has my full support here, and I look forward to reading the outcomes that come of it that the panel selects. So yeah, all for it.
Thank you. Any other discussion, Councillor Hennessy?
Thank you, Mayor. Point 1 says that we approved the guidelines and application form. I would like to suggest that on page 88, conditions of accepted application in those guidelines, we strengthen. At the moment, it simply says appropriate acknowledgement of council support to be just if we
can just, sorry.
Oh, slow it down.
Yes.
Okay.
You said page 88.
Page 88 of the attachment. Thank you,
Yes,
Councillor.
I've got that because yeah, okay, where are you on page 88?
Right at the top, 4th dot point down.
Okay, yep, appropriate acknowledgement.
I'd like to suggest that the words be strengthened, similar to the clause that we put for the Gawler Show Society.
If you can read those, because I think you had them written down somewhere.
And it was given to the note makers. It would change to the sponsorship provided by the town of Gawler to the successful applicant is to be acknowledged and included.
So this is in the actual guidelines?
In the guidelines.
So we're putting it in the guidelines, not in the motion. Is that correct?
Yes, please.
Yep, okay.
Acknowledged and included in all advertising, press releases and promotional literature produced by the successful applicant.
So what we could say is that the guidelines as amended, community
Okay.
grants guidelines as amended, and if you send those words to staff.
Yep.
That will be incorporated.
Okay,
Are you comfortable?
I'm very
with that?
comfortable with that. Thank you.
Okay, all right, as amended, so it's now up there. And if you can do that, that would then be incorporated in that. Okay, thank you very, do you wish to say anything else,
No,
councillor?
thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, councillor Hughes, are you happy for me to put the motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Oh, thanks, Tim. Thanks for bringing, asking councillor White to come back in. So now we're up to expert panel review planning, development and infrastructure at. I'd just like to thank staff for their discussion paper. I think it was very good. There was elements that I think perhaps could be improved, but I think you've captured some of the issues as it pertains to Gawler. So I'd just like to say thank you for that work. So we have an officer's recommendation that we submit our discussion paper and I'm asking for a mover and a seconder. You happy to move that way, councillor Hughes? Yep. Do you wish to speak at all?
Just quickly, yeah, thanking the staff. There was a lot of work put into this, and there's quite a lot that needs to be done as well, which is probably an unfortunate part about it. And it's a bit like how much pressure do you put to try and get some of these things. It is quite frustrating. The heritage overlay and the trees, canopies, developers paying $300 for a tree rather than putting a tree in. It's very frustrating for, I think, everyone. So yeah, there's still a lot of work to be done, and I think it does take a lot of effort to hopefully with this review that's going on to get these changes and just working in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Hughes. Are you happy to second councillor Koch? Do you wish to speak at all?
Yeah, I want to thank the staff for their input, writing this report, very good. The only comment I want to make is there tends to be an over-reliance on tree cover and planting trees. I know it's looking at having deep root zones, but if you just plant trees all the time, exclusion of the middle story and the bottom story, you're actually changing the habitat and actually the local environment. For example, if you only plant trees, you end up with, say, noisy minor birds into an area, which actually push out all the other smaller birds. So really you need to consider having the middle and the understory. So although we've got a deep root zone, I would like to see somewhere in there that we actually talk about the other layers, because that's really, really important, because we just tend to look at trees. I mean, I've been in this game for almost 50 years. And when I started, we just planted trees everywhere and they weren't of the right species and they were from everywhere else. And now we've actually narrowed it down where we're actually starting to grow stuff that is, or plants that are indigenous to an area. And I think that's where I'm finding my industry is actually going, is actually planting species indigenous to the area. So trees are great, but I think we need that, all those layers, and we need the indigenous plants in as well. Okay. That's the only thing I want to say.
Thank you. Any other discussion, Deputy Mayor, and then Councillor Samble?
Yeah, when a new system's rolled out, I think the onus is always on the user to provide feedback, because it's the only way we can, ensure we have the best chance to make it better. I think that's what council are doing, and I'm touching on the planning system and the portal specifically, because as someone that uploads and uses the portal, it can be very, very clunky at times. I had a development that I was uploading that asked for all the documents for the development that we were doing, and didn't allow me enough data space to upload said documents that they asked for. It's frustrating to get to that, and then that system actually not tell you that's the reason it's freezing up and shutting you out. to then have the runaround to actually find out what's going on. That is something that seems so simple. Yet the makers and the managers, if this feedback isn't passed on, then yeah, that frustration will continue through. So this is a part of that, and then also picking up, you know, the heritage layers that I do agree are lacking, and taking on Councillor Koch's point about tree canopies and planting and having the right way to do it as well. So. I think this consolidates all that and part of the process to hopefully make a new system better, and we will have to review this again and again and again to consistently strive for that better system. So this is all part of that. So yes, this one has my full support.
Councillor Sample, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor Karen. I see the chainsaws are out at the moment, nipping off the trees and making a hell of a mess of them. What involvement does this council have with the people that are now cutting their branches and trees away from the electricity wires?
I might actually take that in questions without notice, because I think it's not particularly all that relevant, but I hold that point. I'll come back to you and you can ask the same question, and now you've got forewarning. You'll be able to answer the question, hopefully. So thank you, Councillor Sample. If there's no further discussion, Councillor, who seconded the motion? Councillor Koch, if that can go up on the screen, please. Thank you. Councillor Hughes, you happy for me to put the motion? Thank you. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. So now we're up to 10.6, and this is a fairly straightforward motion that Ms. Natalie Johnston, as chair, that council appoints. Are you happy to move that way, Councillor Hughes? Do I have a seconder, Councillor Davies? I'm not going to take any further discussion. I think it's fairly straightforward. We've got a mover and we've got a seconder. So it's moved by Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Davies. If that can go up, please. Thank you. I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Nominations for the South Australian Public Health Council. It says in here that Mr. Jack Darzanos wishes to be, has expressed an interest in nominating for the position. Is that right, Jack? Yes. Anybody else? You want to go on it? No. You want to move that way? Okay. You want to move that council nominates Mr. Jack Darzanos? Do I have a seconder, Councillor Hennessy? If we can put that name in there. Thank you. I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour. Sorry, what? Yes, yes.
Moving with some pace, sorry. With the council nomination, it has to be, I read correctly, it has to be an elected member or a council staff.
Yes.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Okay, no worries. Well, Jack will be very well suited.
Thank you very much. I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we're moving to Climate Change Council. We can appoint an elected member. Anybody interested in going on the Climate Change Council? I've actually got a proposal that we nominate. I haven't asked Jack Gill, but I'm sure Jack Gill would be very interested. We could, no, he's not, but he's got the skills. I believe he's got the skills to do that, but yes. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
I actually had a conversation with Catherine Moorhurst, the chair of the Climate Emergency Action Plan, and she said if possible she would be interested in being nominated. So I was going to put her up if that was possible.
Oh, well, if Catherine's interested, if people believe that to be the case, so why don't you put it forward?
I mean, subject to her approval, but yes, I talked to her just before the meeting.
Yeah. Does it have to be a staff member or
Or
an
an
elected
elected
member? It has to be a staff member
Yeah.
or elected member, so it can't be Catherine. And it can't be
Jack.
Jack, can't be Jack. So, the only other person I can think of is Tim Kelly, who's sitting in the room. Tim? Are you happy to accept the I don't want you to, please, no. I just want a yes or no. Are you happy to be on the Climate Change Council? No. I beg your pardon? No. Okay. That was very clear. Thank you very much, Mr. Kelly. That was very good. Is there any elected member that wishes to be? We don't have to appoint somebody. We could do the or 1 or 2. We could do the or. We don't need to put one on there, and we could always revisit it if we wish to. So I would suggest if there isn't a great interest, that we move the second 1 or 2. Are you happy to do that way? Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I'm just wondering, is this nominating someone that will go on the council, or is it nominating someone that the local government association considers, or am I getting confused? Is this for
They
consideration?
consider it.
It's not a definite.
No,
Yes, yeah.
it goes through to a
Yes,
nomination
and I did
process.
read in there that it was about someone that sort of had expertise in this area. So
Yeah.
if we put it out for public advertising, then we might get interested parties that are no.
I think
Has to
there's it's got to be in by 10th of February. So we probably should have got this last year, but we got it now, so we don't really have a lot of time. So I think that clarifies that question, Councillor White. I think we should move 1 or 2, the second 1 or 2, and just leave it for the moment if we can't find somebody. So you're happy to move that way, Councillor Hughes? You're happy to second Councillor Davies, if that can be put in that recommendation. Thank you, minute takers. It was Councillor Hughes and Councillor Davies seconded. Thank you very much. So we've got a mover and a second. I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you. Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Council energy costs update. I enjoyed reading all of the attachments, Mr. Kelly. I really enjoy your work, and it's very thorough. I do. I'm learning a lot. So thank you very much. So we have a motion. Are you happy to move that way, Councillor Vallelonga? Thank you. Are you happy to second, Deputy Mayor? If there's no discussion. Yep.
Seeing as we're making such good time. With the electrical expenditure, we have more. If we hypothetically said we didn't do the LED street light upgrade, how much more would that 90,000 be? Roughly. I'm just saying the investment in the street lights was a good timing one, because we would have been up for some.
Through the chair. I've been very conservative in the estimate of the savings, because it's really just for last half of the financial year. And I think I estimated that to be $50,000 or whatever. But in actual fact, the LED project's more important because the price of electricity is going up a lot more. So the savings will be effectively more because we'll be using less electricity. So where it was originally envisaged as a saving of about $200,000 a year, or 127 with the cost of capital considered. In future, if the prices stay where they're going, stay higher, it's going to be more than that.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah. Thank you very much for that response. I think that clarifies. Thank you very much. I'm going to put this motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Next is the guarantee of origin. I really enjoyed reading this as well, Mr. Kelly. It is starting to make sense to me. And I think you make some very, very good points about marketing accounting and the lack of legislated inclusion that really would lead the nation, wouldn't it? I think you're absolutely right. There is that we authorise the CEO or his delegate to submit the attached guarantee of origin renewable electricity certification scheme submission towards the goals of achieving fair pricing structures and clear, consistent rules for renewable energy underpinned by legislation for both council and its community. You happy to move that way, Councillor Hennessy? You happy to second, Councillor Davies? Anybody wish to speak? You wish to speak?
Yeah, just briefly to congratulate Tim on his clearly very busy month, putting in a lot of work in very important aspects for the council.
It's wonderful, actually. We're very lucky to have you, Tim. Okay, we have a mover and a second. If there's no further discussion, I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. So now we have information reports, and I just want to raise in the first information report, which is the annual business plan and the timetable. And I'm talking about the timetable. It says on page 72 of our agenda that in principle adoption of the recurrent budget, we don't normally in principle adopt before we go out to public consultation. I think that I know that can still come up, but I suspect we should take that out. And I also think we should take out the Thursday, 13th of April working group panel meeting of the participatory budgeting process, because we don't know whether we're going to meet on a Thursday. We don't know whether people are going to be available on a Thursday. It might be a Monday, it might be a Wednesday. So I think we should take that out. In principle adoption of the recurrent budget and project budgets, it just doesn't sit right with me, and I think we should take that out. It still can be put up, but I just feel that in principle adoption maybe says to the community that we agree with the budget, we haven't really listened to them, and that's prior to it actually going out. It goes out on the 26th of April, in principle adoption of draft annual budget, a business plan and budget for public consultation. That's fine. But before that, I just think we need to be a bit careful with that language. That's just my view. Other people might have a different view. Yeah, so I'd suggest we remove those two items. It can still be put up as a recurrent budget and ask us what we'd like to do, but I just think if it's in here and we endorse it, we're stuck with it. Okay. We can move these on block as well. We don't have to, but we can. Sure.
I think we've amended the recommendation such that it says as amended. So with that tweak to the recommendation, we can address your feedback, Karen.
Yeah.
In terms of both the reference to the in principle.
Yeah.
And we can take out the date of the.
Yeah, well, it might end up
to be
being
advised. Right, and we can change, we can remove the specific date for the petitionary budgeting to be advised. Yeah.
Thank you. So we have information reports. How do we wish to, what would you like to do, Councillor Davies?
I'm happy to move them on bulk.
Okay. Do you wish to speak at all?
Yeah, well, just on 11.4, the call for motions, maybe if we can get some a reminder and maybe some further information for new members in regards to what would be a meaningful motion to the to this National General Assembly.
Yeah. Could be one around the voice, maybe. Could be. Yes, maybe you and I could work on something. Yeah, I think that would be quite useful anyway. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Have a good night. Okay, thank you very much for that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hughes, do you wish to speak at all? No. Any discussion, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I've just got a couple of notes. 11.1, I actually picked up the same point you did, Mayor, so I'm glad that was amended. But just noting that we do have a heavy budget calendar, as we always do. It's a very important role as an elected body to show up and to contribute to those discussions. I'm looking forward to seeing how we do it this year with a new executive manager, not to take anything away from Paul Horwood, but you know, it's always good to see how we're going to contribute to that very important work we do. 11.2, it was talking about the opinions, the opinion piece. Now, I sort of worked through that opinion paper in the attachments, and I was hoping for a little bit more, like, you know, we found this is really good. Some areas that could be worked on is this and this, but in the opinion paper, and I might have missed it, and I apologize if I do, but it really just came up with, yes, everything's all good, and then more about why the company gives these opinions and more about why they're required to. A discussion that I'm happy to take offline as well further on, because I might have missed something there, but it just seemed a bit tokenistic on that opinion piece for the auditing that was required at the time. And that, I think, is all my notes for those points.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Davies, you happy for me to put the motion? I'll put that motion that we move the information items en bloc. I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. So now we move to, what's the time? I'm actually going to have a 10-minute break so we can go to the bathroom or whatever we wish to do, and stretch our legs, have a glass of water or whatever, and we can come back at probably 9:12. Thank you, everyone. We might get started, everyone, if everyone can take their seats, and we'll just keep moving. Thank you very much. Okay. So, thank you, everyone. So I'm on page 85, and this is recommendations from committees, 85 of 98. Recommendations from the special Gawler Heritage Collection Committee meeting held on the 10th of November, and it's a noting motion about an adopted motion. You happy to move that way? Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hennessy. I'll just allow the minute taker to put that in. Not in yet. Seconded by Councillor Hennessy. Thank you. It's a noting motion, so I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. We're moving over to the audit and risk. Now, these are from the 8th of November 2022, which is quite a while ago. We have a noting motion from the Barossa Regional Procurement Group, and that is that it notes the updated report. You happy to move that way, Councillor Kosh? Seconded by Councillor Vallelonga. Thank you. If that can be put in, thank you. Councillor Kosh, seconded by Councillor Vallelonga. Thank you. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. 12.2.1, which is the financial performance summary report. It recommends to council that it be received. Thank you, Councillor Vallelonga. Moved by Councillor Vallelonga, seconded by Councillor Kosh. Can't actually see it. No, we're not yet. We're not at external bodies. We're actually at 12.2.1. We're at 12.2.1. So we are, oh, you've got 6.1 there. So item 6.1. Item 6.1, that it be received. Oh, here we go. It was held on the 29th of November. Okay. And it was held on the, why is it here then? Why is it in there? Why is it, what? Okay, but it was presented, it's already been presented at the 29th of November. Okay. Okay, so these have all been done, so we don't need to worry about them. Okay, so we'll move to external body reports. And I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder. That is not correct. What's in there now? Well, I'm asking for a mover and a seconder to note the minutes of these community groups. Thank you, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hennessy. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so that concludes the external body reports. Now we have questions on notice. Yes, please. The questions will be, the answers to the questions will be included in the minutes. And you'll also get a copy. I'll give you a few minutes to just peruse those. Okay, thank you. Thank you for those questions on those, councillors. Councillor Samble, you had a question without notice. Now, Ms Young, are you able to answer that question for Councillor Samble?
Through the chair, I am able to give at least part of an answer to your question, councillor Sample. So the active tree services that are out around the town at the moment undertaking the cyclic tree pruning for the South Australian Power Networks. So they are engaged by South Australian Power They are experienced arborists, but they are working fundamentally to the specification from South Australian Power Networks, which is all about clearances between tree canopy and power lines. So they've got experienced arborists, but they are doing it for clearance reasons. Where council comes in to try and get the best outcome for our street trees, noting that our street trees have an important biodiversity value, but also have an important beautification value for our town, is our town services staff engage with active tree services. And we've come up with an approach that has varied their methodology for pruning the trees. So you would have seen historically the trees, I'm sure Councillor Koch have some good feedback on this as well, but historically the trees were pruned in a fairly robust way that didn't take into account maintaining the characteristic of the tree and how it presented itself as a street tree. So now we have liaised with the active tree management services to agree their methodology. So they've amended their methodology. There's a little bit of cost that council contributes to have this methodology adopted, but you'll see it's called the bunny ears cutting approach. And that's where instead of just taking the entire top off and flattening it, we actually create bunny ears or a bit of a V profile so that the branches that are not in the boundary of the power lines are maintained, but the area that needs to have the clearance achieves the right clearance.
Thank you. So thank you, Ms. Young. Any other questions without notice? I saw you first, Councillor White, and then Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Mayor. Am I able to ask a question without notice in regards to the questions on notice? Like a secondary question, I guess?
Yes.
Okay, I just have two. First of all, regarding the Main Street events. So in the answers, it states here that a total event cost to close the Main Street is approximately $31,000. Then on the next page, it says that council has invested heavily into Christmas activities. 2022 Christmas events was approximately $57,000. Down the bottom, it says closing Murray Street for a Christmas street festival would incur a significant additional cost.
I don't know where you are.
Oh,
can you please
sorry,
tell me
yep.
where you are?
So I'm on page 2 at the end of the question 2 answer.
Oh, closing Murray Street.
Closing Murray Street, yeah. So it says here that closing Murray Street for Christmas street festival would incur significant costs and would take council's investment beyond 100,000. I guess my question is if we take the $57,000 that council currently invests in Christmas, so say 60,000 plus the 30,000 for closing the street for an event, that's 90,000. This implies there will be beyond 100K. Could I, my question is, can I have a breakdown of what that beyond $100,000 cost would be? Because to me, it seems we could do what we're doing now with closing the street for $90,000. So
90.
So it says if we 57,000 is what we currently spend, plus 30,000 to close the street, it's just under 90,000. So what could what I guess
put a budget bit up. It says it right here.
Oh yes, about 80.
20.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
you add that.
Plus that, so 80 plus 30, so 110 or so. I guess I'd like to see a breakdown of what those additional costs are.
We can take
Is that on notice? Is that?
I think we'll take that on notice, Mr. Barrett. Yep. Yeah. You don't want to take it on notice?
So through the chair, I need clarification because the costs to close the street depend on the nature of the event, the extent of the closure and all those sorts of things. The over 100,000 figure is, as the mayor pointed out, the existing 57 plus the proposed mayor's budget bid regarding improved decorations of 20 plus the street closure stuff to over 100.
Yeah, so it depends, because in here it also talks about anti-terrorism. If you have a long street closure, if you have a rolling street closure, it's quite different. Yeah. It is in here. It is in here. Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
I might rephrase that later on in another question later on, but that's okay. I just wanted to, I guess, ask
Yeah.
my second question, regarding the roundabout beautification. I thank the staff for responding to my question about how that budget was reached. My question would be, I'll just be totally honest, I'm very new to the local government game. Looking at layman's eyes, I understand the surveying and the SA water meters and stuff, but $130,000 to do irrigation design and installation, civil demolition and landscaping, 2 roundabouts, just seems absurd to me. And I understand.
This is the actual cost.
Yeah,
of what it was.
I guess I understand that when you contract out from councils, they like to put their figures up, but if you have a look at particularly the Adelaide Road roundabout, to think that it costs that much money to plant what appears to be 15 plants and pour a little bit of gravel is.
You also pay for the, you pay for the company, you pay for the workers that are there, you pay for the tender costs. It all goes into the overall cost, doesn't it? And I think it did say here that these concerns and the potential budget implications were discussed. However, the beautification benefits and decision of council to undertake the works outweighed the potential risks. So these are the actual costs of what it costs.
Yes. No.
So they're not lying.
No. That's, I understand that's what it costs. And if that's what it costs, then that's okay.
Yeah.
But if I spent $130,000 to beautify my front house, I would expect a heck of a lot more than what's in the middle of those roundabouts. Like, it is really disappointing. Driving along in Gawler, seeing what's been done for that amount of money, I'm really disappointed as a resident of Gawler, and I'm sure the
staff were
community are.
disappointed as well.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone disagrees with you.
So
but I think these were the costs.
yes, and again, and looking here, the quotes went up to 255,000. But anyway,
Yeah.
Is there a way that we can, I guess, put feedback into the contractor that was chosen, or express our disappointment in the outcome, or what? Could someone just point me in the right direction? Because I'm just a little bit confused. There's some roundabouts around that look really nice. Are they costing $1 million? Is that what we need to pay to get a nice looking roundabout? Because yeah.
But that's a lot of money for one roundabout, isn't it? Ms. Young?
Through the chair, I know where you're coming from, Councillor White. I'm a resident here too. The reality is that council's got a very robust procurement process, which is set up to try and get the best value for money. And I guess you can see, given the range of tender prices we received, all on the same specification, all to the same set of conditions, or conforming tenders. The process does work. Because we could have paid an extra 125,000 just on the base contract, and we would have still encountered the same issues. I do think we do need to have faith in our procurement process. I think it is robust. In terms of what the outcome is, at the end of the day, those contractors have complied with the specification that they were engaged to deliver on. I think there is a little bit of patience we need to have and watch the plants, grow and thrive. Could we have specified larger plot sizes? Yes, we could have, but then we would have been bearing the price of that as well. So it's the pros and cons of all of that. I think give them time to grow and thrive, and let's see what happens. I think there's broader discussion around what we do next for beautification. But yeah.
I'm going to go to Councillor Solomon now for your question without notice.
Thank you, Mayor. Just similar to Councillor White's questions, it's referring to the previous questions on notice. Just in question 1 there on the first page, the answer seems to assume that council will be responsible for hosting the event. If council were not to hold the event and it was a community group that required the closure of Murray Street, which of those costs would still apply and which would not?
that might need to be taken on notice, I think, Mr Barrett. Are you agreeing with that? Yeah, so we'll take that on notice, councillor Solomon, and get back to you, and it will be shared with all councillors. Now, councillor White, did you have another question?
Thanks, Mayor. No, I just wanted to clarify, I guess, what was said before regarding the roundabouts. So we got what we paid for basically at the end of the day. So that's just how much that costs. So I guess this really probably isn't appropriate to ask some questions about notice, but I guess it's just saying maybe in future, do we need to go, okay, beautifying the roundabouts is great. I agree with it. But if it's going to cost $200,000 to get that, you go, well, hang on a sec, maybe we can just.
You're actually making a statement. That
Okay.
is not a question.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe take that offline and you can have a conversation with staff.
That's fine.
Or even the CEO about your concerns around that.
Thank
Okay,
you,
so
Naomi. Thank you.
thank you. Councillor Sample?
Thank you, Karen, and I agree totally with many people that have sort of got in touch with me and what Councillor White has said. But the ironic part about this whole thing is that we don't own those roundabout.
No, we don't.
It was given to Deputation, the state government. So we've spent that money, Councillor White, giving it to the state government and didn't do it properly in the first place. And if I can just go back to what Councillor Solomon has said.
What's your question?
Saturday night.
What's your question, councillor Sample?
Sorry.
It's a question. You're in.
Well, the question was, does everybody realise that we don't own those roundabouts, but we spent that $255,000 that never ever came to a council meeting to discuss what the cost was or whatever it may be. And I'm like Councillor White, in the future, these things, we've got to spend a bit more time and it has to come to council to discuss whether or not we want to be involved and spend 255,000 where it's not ours. We've actually just planted it so that Deputation own it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
Can I just finish then?
Well, what's your next question?
Well, the next one, I attended a huge event up at Tanunda the other night where the whole main street, and I'm talking 2 kilometres, was full up with display cars. Thousands of people attended. It costs nothing.
That is not a question, that is a statement.
Yeah, well, might
So-
be, but
so-
it costs nothing into
Okay,
nothing,
so
but it
that
costs
is not
something.
a question. I'm going to stop you right there. Okay, now, I think we'll move on from questions without notice, and we'll go to motions on notice. Councillor Shanks, you've got one that you wish to present.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, this is a simple one, councillors. I think there's a connection that needs to be made clear. We in council have a lot of strategic documents, plans, frameworks. If you jump on the website, you'll see, I think, around 20 documents that relate to open space, town centre framework. There is some missing off of that website as well, just to bring that to the attention. I think there is some endorsed plans that aren't actually on the website, so we even have more. These strategic documents are what provide our overarching direction on getting from where we are to where we want to go. We review these documents as a matter of the references, and it is an important job of council to keep on reviewing these things. There are plans that we do have that actually have clear actions as a part of the endorsement, as a part of the plan that the Chamber of Baton does endorse. And it would be great to see those actions referenced when it comes to budget deliberations. Because it then sees our hierarchy of strategy, I guess, and shows that this year we're putting this much money into this strategy that was endorsed in 2010, 2016, whatever it is. So offering up an extra line of detail throughout our budget bid proposals, and I also I'm hoping elected member budget bids also have this lens as well that they contribute to. But by offering this up in the budget deliberation process, especially early on, we can actually see the reasons why a budget bid is put up, even as obvious as it may seem at the time. I'm sure there's a strategy, there's a reason, there's something that has put that budget bid on the radar to want to come up to that budget cycle. And reference to the strategic document, including any actions as they may be noted, will make it even clearer again when we come through to do some of the most important work we have to do every year. So I look forward to the discussion. This is a simple motion in my opinion, and consolidates all the great work that's happened previously. But again, look forward to the discussion.
Do we have a seconder? I think I saw Councillor Vallelonga first, so seconded by Councillor Vallelonga. Thank you. Discussion? Councillor White.
Thanks, Mayor. I just had a question. First of all, I support the motion. I think that the Deputy Mayor makes some very, very valid points. I just had a question, I guess, a technical question. Would there be anything in the budget that isn't related to a strategic document that is still a requirement, something that still needs to go in the budget, therefore it would?
I'd be very surprised if it didn't. A lot of the bids, particularly capital, relate to the asset management plan and should relate to the asset management plan. And if it's not in there, then you'd have to ask the question exactly as Deputy Mayor says, why? What if it's not attached? There might be new initiatives. Again, if it's infrastructure, it should relate to our strategic plans. It might even relate to our community plan, which is the highest document that we have. But our asset management plan is probably a really key document. We've got stormwater management plans, and that's another key document. So there are some really important plans. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything to that. No? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so there are some really key important plans. We are required to deliver on the asset management plan. We are required to update it regularly, and we are required to make sure that we take note and take into consideration the asset management plan plus stormwater management plans. There's also regional wide plans. There's regional stormwater plans, there's river master plans, there's biodiversity management plans, there's a whole range of plans, climate emergency action plan, for example. So there are some really important documents that I think feed very nicely into what Deputy Mayor is suggesting. Does that help? Okay, thank you. I think who was next? Was there somebody else? Was it Councillor Kosh next? Okay, I'll take Councillor Kosh because I can't remember who was next.
Okay.
Thank you.
Look, Mayor, I'm just looking at the budget bid document at the moment, and it goes budget bid title, that's fine, description and scope, and then it goes asset category, and then it goes expenditure type, estimated cost, then it's got strategy alignment, so it's already got that, and it's got community plan alignment, and then submitted. Doesn't that already cover that? Isn't that already covered?
Well, I think that, and I think Sharon would say that it does. Sharon, do you want to comment on that?
It's already,
Sharon,
it's already here. It's already.
So yes, through you, Your Worship. So yes, in relation to the submissions that are presented by staff, we do actually request, or that effectively that linkage needs to actually be made back to the community plan and the strategic directions that's set. So I suppose from my perspective, a bit unclear as to what information you've received in the past. However, it has been, I suppose, past practice from my perspective that those linkages are actually shown throughout the process when councils actually deliberate on the proposals, but also in the final annual business plan that actually goes out to the community. So that those linkages through either the asset management plan or the community plan or any other reference to any other strategies are there. So
thank you. Councillor Kosh, another question?
No,
You want to
just to
speak?
comment on, just
okay.
speaking on, mean, every time I've put a budget bid in, I've always looked at the asset management plan, community plan, asset management plan, the long-term financial plan, and always thought, well, how does all this fit into it anyway? Because budget bids don't just come from fresh air. They can't. They come from those strategic documents anyway already. So I'm not sure, I'm really confused about what's been asked up here, because I can see here in this form and what we've done previously, that anyway. So I'll probably be voting against it because I don't think we need to do it, but just my view. Yep.
Thank you, councillor Davies.
Yeah, I'm in support of this motion. And yes, it's true that this is all this is not new work that the staff has to do, because they would internally already be doing all of this. This is a question around, as I understand it, when councillors receive a big list of the staff budget, etc., having the transparency around why was that decision made, which plan does it conform with. I think that was the intent, more so than suggesting that staff weren't doing this, but more that councillors would like to see it when we go through our workshops.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Hennessy?
Yeah, I interpreted it as councillor Davies did. I see it as making our decisions easier if we can see that. I also see it as part of a bit of a heads up that we continue to use the discipline to make our own budget bids fit the same criteria, because as a member of the public, I couldn't always see that.
Councillor Shanks, do you want to close the debate?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Councillor Davies and Councillor Hennessy, you've captured the intent perfectly. Apologies that it wasn't clearer to yourself, Councillor Kosh. The points that I'm really trying to harp on, and I've just quickly pulled this up, and I won't go through every one, but the Ageing Well framework, the beautification plan, the climate emergency action plan.
You haven't actually, I raised the climate emergency, but the other plans haven't been discussed in the debate.
But corporate publications have, and the register that hosts these publications have.
It hasn't been raised in the debate. Sorry.
Okay, so there's some examples of the corporate publications that are endorsed by council and important work that we do. The onus is on us to ensure that we understand what actions and which are budget bids in all honesty. Once we endorse a budget, that endorses an action. And we need to understand where those actions come from and the why they come from. Now, if we can have our budget documents that aren't only talking about the higher strategical documents, like I heard the community plan reference, as is referenced every meeting in every report. You see at the bottom where it's referenced the statements that we're hoping to achieve by that recommendation coming forward. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of the actions that some of these plans clearly state. A plan might say, if we're going to do an open space, we want 3 slippery dips. So therefore, and this is example only, so therefore a budget bid of 3 slippery dips will relate to that open space action that is a part of a corporate publication that was endorsed by the council at the time. So getting into those actions and making it clear and transparent not only directs staff to assist us in our budget deliberations, but also starts, as Councillor Hennessy put perfectly, starts the process of getting us thinking of using the documents that have been endorsed for our own budget bids and providing direction moving forward, because 9 times out of 10, these are great documents and we review them, but at some point, quite regularly, but at some point in time, you know, having a plan to make a plan to make a plan with no action starts getting noticed. And I'm trying to either show that's not what's happening, or if it is happening, where can we improve? So I hope to get this support because, yeah, I see this as a good way forward to only be more transparent in the budget process, which can be a complex process for the community to understand.
The debate is closed. I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? it is carried. Thank you. Councillor Shanks, if you'd like to present your next motion. Thank you. Deputy Mayor, I should say.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, this is more of the same. It's just picking a strategic document that is the Gawler Town Centre Design Framework and requesting an information report to come back to the May Ordinary Council meeting on the runs on the board, really, of what we've achieved since this plan was, this framework was endorsed in 2016. If I've read correctly, I think there's around $55,000 we paid for this award-winning document, I do believe. So it would be great to be clear to the community what that investment of getting consultants to draw up these plans brings us, and what outcomes we're listening to and recommendations we're enacting on from these professionals that we hire to tell us how, or to provide recommendations on how to do things, to then ultimately be endorsed by the Chamber of the time. So hopefully this can get up, because this will be a good information and a good start to start showing how these frameworks, these plans actually work when we come to boots on ground outcomes.
You happy to second, Councillor Samble? We've got a seconder, Councillor Samble. If that can be put in, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, I do support the motion, but I actually think it should probably go through the committee, and that's what the committees are there for. And then it'll come to council as a motion to council. And in the committees where you can actually discuss it and ask a lot more questions and actually pull things apart, which is what Councillor Shanks.
Are you thinking of the IEF?
IES would be perfect, but I mean, a lot of the older councils, we actually went to Main Street conferences. We actually had a Main Street conference in Gawler. We actually actively embrace these documents and went on visits to Semaphore and to Port Adelaide and other main streets, looking at how their Main Street works, for example, just in that area. But there is a lot to unpack, and I think a report to council wouldn't allow the discussion time or the input. Yeah, just change. Yeah.
So are you happy, mover, to go to the IES committee? Is that it? Yep. Yep. Thank you, minute taker. So you're in agreement with that, mover? Yeah. And Councillor Samble, you happy with that? Yep, thank you. Thank you very much for that. Okay, I think that's addressed your concern, Councillor Hughes. Any other discussion? If there's no further discussion, Councillor Shanks, are you happy for me to put the motion? I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillor Lorna, you've got the floor.
Okay, we've chosen the representatives of the town of Gawler, part of the community that elected me, and I strongly believe that in these unprecedented times, the perception is that the councillors, CEO and executive staff are taking meals off the table of the ratepayers, regardless if we partake or not. This is a moral and community supportive motion. Being true leaders of the community, and doing so, we must lead from the front. We have multiple people in our electorate giving up their own time, supporting various volunteer groups, not expecting anything in return, but here we are taking from the community we chose to represent. I'd also like to take the opportunity to invite the CEO and executive staff to take on board this motion and its intent, along with the community's feelings, and by choice forego the supplied meals as a stand of equality within the town of Gawler, a sign of respect and understanding for those that cannot afford the bare essentials.
Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Shanks has seconded the motion. You wish to speak?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, look, I'm sure as a lot of elected members in the room this has been a hot topic, and it is something that it makes perfect sense to me, the way that Councillor Lorna has presented it here tonight. I don't think the intent was of malice at all with what was going on. And when I first started on council, I remember it being as simple as a communal lasagna and a salad at the administration building. Unfortunately, when COVID came along, the problem with doing that communal situation became very difficult, and it did seem to evolve the way that it did. I haven't been to a council supplied meal in I don't know how many years now. I'm usually pretty time poor, and I don't like the idea of putting in for a meal and then not rocking up and it being wasted. So, but I get the sentiment. I think the main point to point out here is also what happens next after this, which is what Councillor Warner has pushed out. So I'm happy to support it because, again, I do support a wedge of the community myself, and my wedge is jumping up and down as well. So yeah, look, I'm happy to support this.
Councillor Hennessy.
Thank you, Mayor. While I understand and thank Councillor Lorna for his motion, I'm going to speak against it. I guess I come from a long understanding of how this eventuated, from a staff situation where staff are entitled, having started in some cases at 7 o'clock in the morning, they are entitled to a meal break. I won't normally partake. I don't need to. I can make arrangements. However, I have already, and I probably will next month, find myself in a situation where I have 3/4 of an hour between one meeting finishing and the next one starting. The meal I attended was not excessive. It was $13. It was in a plastic takeaway. It is not luxurious. It is nutritious and enough to keep going. I have attended enough council meetings where the blood sugar levels of some councillors have reached rock bottom because they haven't had the chance to eat. And that leads to poor decision making and in some cases raised tempers. So I think it's important that we do have the opportunity to eat. I have been on a number of boards, private sector boards and public sector boards that do provide that for that particular reason, to ensure people have a sufficient nutrition to have that. So I have also been contacted. I know it was an issue for a small or portion of the community. And when I was electioning, was contacted by a number of people. When I explained that for some, they are travelling straight from work to get to a meeting and have a very short period of time. Most people seemed quite adequate. And also the fact that it wasn't candles and linen and a full 3-course meal. It was a very I think quite a restrained, healthy, and I refer to the fact that when I did work here in council for a stage, the meal was pizza and Coke, which is not a healthy option. So yeah, I'm going to vote against it.
Any other discussion? Councillor Solomon?
This is a question, I ask a question. Yeah. So this motion doesn't have any effect on the ability of executive staff to access a meal at all, including the point
No.
2? No, it doesn't.
It's all, it's directed at council members.
Yeah. Thank you.
And also developing a strategy. Yeah. Any other discussion? Councillor Hughes?
Just a question first. Does this include all workshops? Like we've got
Yes.
all day training coming up on
we've got-
Saturdays where we'll have
We're
to
going to
bring
be
our
having
lunch boxes.
We're going to be having 6 hours on, we'll have to bring our own food. Yeah. If this gets up. So all meetings, so we won't have an opportunity. We'll have to bring our packed lunch. Yeah.
Yeah, I will actually speak against the motion because it is actually a really small cost. And what is it, $13.50 or something per meal. But it actually allows council members that are time poor to actually have something to eat. And you can meet residents before the meeting, but it's also the networking with staff while you're having the meal and actually asking the silly questions. And Adelaide City Council, they also debated this and actually decided to keep their meals because they actually found as part, Joe, that it was that networking. And Joe, if that cuts out one code of conduct complaint, that's going to pay for your meals for the next 4 years. So it's that relationship. It is, Joe, part of the councillor has to develop relationships with council employees and establish and maintain relationships. So it actually helps that side of it as well. So yeah, it's not a pub meal or anything like that. It is quite a I mean, it sounds fancy, but it's just they are simple meals. They're not huge meals, but it is a really good opportunity to talk to staff one-on-one or as a group and discuss, even future decisions or have those conversations about day-to-day things with staff. So I think it's really important to maintain that. And as Councillor Hennessy said, there's an occupational health and safety risk, especially if we've got meetings, tonight's meeting's 4 hours, and if you don't get a chance to eat, I mean, I always carry protein bars because I do a lot of travelling, but protein bars don't really cut it either. So yeah, I just think it's sort of short-sightedness. There are ways for us to save money in other areas. We've had other motions like to cut the cost of the deputy mayor, which is actually more than the cost of the meals for 1 year. There are other ways, but it is only a very small cost and it's nothing lavish. And yeah, it's something that was brought in to try and, I think, just cover elected members who weren't getting fed before meetings, which this will cut out or make it more difficult, and try that nutrition as well as the networking. So yeah, it's certainly something that's done in other councils, and I think it's even seen as compulsory that council members socialise with the council staff for that code of conduct and that networking that is actually required as part of being a councillor as well. So thanks.
Councillor White.
Thanks, Mayor Redmond. May I ask a question? I think as maybe a compromise, does this motion still allow for meals to happen before meetings and workshops?
No.
But at the expense of council members, so that $13 is deducted from our pay or our allowance each month, or so that, as Councillor Hughes says, I agree in the networking before the meeting and with staff. I think that's a great benefit. I also agree with Councillor Lorna that we're taking money away from the community piggy bank. So as a compromise, could this motion allow for meals to continue, but at council members' expense?
I don't think you can force individuals to pay. You can't, I don't think that's beyond the power of council. So I don't think that would be appropriate because I don't know if we have consent. So I think that's probably inappropriate, but I think it's a good suggestion. Yeah, I think it's beyond the power of council at this stage. Yeah. Okay, any other discussion? Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Mayor. So I want to start by saying that I'll be supporting this motion. I think the circumstances surrounding council members and staff is very different, and so I may not share some of the views of other people who will be supporting this motion about executive staff having access to meals, but I do believe that for council members there are some very different considerations to take into account. I also note some of the concerns around all meetings in there rather than just council meetings. I would say though that I think the majority of people, when they go to work, if they have lunch that day, they usually bring it in the form of a sandwich or go out and get it themselves. I don't think it's an unusual detriment to council members that during a workshop that they have to do that. I certainly work for not-for-profit organisations who encourage people to bring their own lunch to some workshops. It's a routine part of the role, and I think that is a very routine part of the role to attend those meetings. So I'll be supporting this motion.
Councillor Kosh.
Look, I won't be supporting this motion. I've been able to have the meals when I required. When I rush around between, I've got my own business and I'm very busy, and I rush around and from one thing to another. And this just gives me a chance to actually slow down with my colleagues and actually relax a little bit, get my, get my game face on, etc. Get ready for the meeting, and actually make really good connections with the staff. I mean, I've really enjoyed connecting with staff beyond just talking about work, about us as people. And that's been very, very valuable. And I've really enjoyed that. And I found that a very pleasant part of this role as a councillor. I think it's not very much. It's $13. I mean, as Councillor Q said, there was a motion to save thousands more by not paying the deputy mayor, and that was knocked over. But now we're talking about saving a few dollars here. I find it really inconsistent to start with. And also, if people are going to feel this way, they should really seriously look at their budget bids and what they're putting up, because some of the things that people are talking about are huge amounts compared to what this is. So if people are going to support this, I think they need to be really consistent in saying that they're going to drive their expenditures down across the board completely and be really conscious of their budget bids and what they're actually looking at. So anyway, I won't be supporting this because I think it creates a very, very good benefit for councillors and council staff and overall council itself.
Councillor Lorna, you can close the debate.
Okay, appreciate Helen's statement in regards to nutrition. I can accept that. I believe that we're all adults here and can maintain our own lives. We can maintain our own foods. Mr. Kosh, Councillor Kosh here is talking about people running around. Give you an example this morning. I was up at 4 o'clock in the morning down in Mawson Lakes at work at 5 o'clock. Work was through till 5:30, got home, cooked dinner for my family and kids and came to the meeting. If you can't work it out, there's a real problem there. We got 20% of our population on rate payment plans. Ratepayers are struggling to pay their rent, mortgages, putting fuel in their cars. Families are struggling to put food on their table. We have the options of prawn and avocado salad, plate, lemon garlic mayo, pesto, roast veggie puff tarts and green salad. Because we chose to represent the community, doesn't sit well with me at all. We as a supportive and aware members of this community need to understand the image we are portraying. If voted against, not only are we securing perks for ourselves, despite the general community's perception, we have the potential of all members gaining from this, increasing the cost considerably. We keep bringing up the cost about, obviously, Deputy Mayor Shanks and him taking his bill. I believe that his wage is well earned by him and is value added. I can't see us sitting here having bills are value added. That's what I got. Yes.
The debate is closed. Thank you. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? Can you raise your hands, all those in favour, please, again? The motion is carried. Thank you. Sorry? Deputy Mayor Shanks has called a division. All those in favour, please stand. And I'll call your names out and stay standing. Thank you. Councillor Lorna, Councillor White, Councillor Davies, Councillor Vallelonga, Deputy Mayor Shanks, Councillor Solomon. All those against are Councillor Kosh, Councillor Hughes, Councillor Hennessy and Councillor Samble. The motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, Councillor White. Actually, before we do that, we're going to run out of time. We have a existing council resolution that we need to finish by 10:30. So I would ask if we want to continue and deal with our confidential items, we need to go to 11 o'clock. So we need an extension of half an hour. Are you happy to move that way, councillor Samble? Seconded by Deputy Mayor Shanks. I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. It is carried unanimously. Thank you. So now, councillor White, you can, oh, sorry. Yes.
I believe like some of the confidential items are time sensitive, are they?
Yeah.
Yeah, whether we could actually, I'd like to move that we move to those items because I think these debates will take up the rest of 11 o'clock and we won't actually get to it.
So you are moving, is that a formal motion?
Yes.
That you are moving, that we move, it's actually not a formal motion, that we move to confidential reports.
Yes.
Move it forward, item 19. Yep, and you seconded that, councillor Hennessy, so we've got a mover and a seconder. I'm going to put that motion that confidential items be moved forward. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Can you please keep your hands up, please? All those against, it is carried. Thank you. So we are moving now to confidential reports, item 19. And so we're going to our pink packets, councillors. And I'm now on page 96 of our white packet. And there is a recommendation to go into confidence to discuss the Carbethan Reserve development. How do you wish to proceed? I think we should discuss this in confidence. I think it's a good idea. Councillor Vallelonga, are you happy to move that way? Thank you. Do I have a seconder? If the seconder moves, can you explain why we're going into confidence? I think it's a good transparent way of doing that. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you. Councillor Hennessy, would you like to explain why we need to discuss this in confidence? It does say the reason why, if you look under the minute taker. Thank you.
I think the reason we're going into confidence is that the information, the disclosure would be reasonably expected to confer a commercial advantage on a person for whom the council is conducting or proposing to conduct business or to prejudice the commercial position of the council.
Thank you. And also tenders.
And also, sorry, turning the page, for the tender of the supply of goods, the provision of services, or the carrying out of works.
Thank you very much for that explanation. I appreciate it. I think everyone else appreciates it as well. So that explains why we're going into confidence, or potentially going for a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, I'm going to put that motion that we go into confidence. All those in favour, please raise your hands. It is carried unanimously. Thank you. Sorry. No, we're not taking questions. Yes, we did do that.